Herzlich willkommen zum UnleashPeople-Podcast, dem Podcast für alle, die HR und Talent Acquisition strategisch denken. Wir, Ina und Christian, liefern euch gemeinsam mit Expertinnen und Experten regelmäßig frische Insights, die euch und euer Unternehmen voranbringen. Heute sprechen wir mit Renita Käsper, einer global aufgestellten Talent Acquisition und Employer Branding Leaderin, über Stakeholder-Management. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Unleash People podcast. Today, we have Renita as guest, and we decided on a topic we actually have not yet spoken about at all, at least not explicitly. And again, it's one of those topics where people think, oh, that's super easy. Everybody can do it. But I guess it's an urban myth. So enjoy the next 30 to 35 minutes of us speaking about stakeholder management, not only within talent attraction, but also within the complete HR space. And as Renita wanted to speak about that topic, I will pop my first question to you. So, stakeholder management, why isn't it as easy as people think it is?
Oh, thank you for asking. Very good. You never will do that. But yeah, first, thank you for inviting and also letting me to talk, or let's hope that start to rant my one of my favorite topics. But yeah, why it's not so easy as people think of. I think people think always that, which is this kind of, let's say, soft conversation there, that it's between people and we just get along and have this conversation and that's it. But I would say that communication generally between different people with different agendas and different goals is one of maybe the most complicated things what you can actually have in a business or corporate world, and how you do it well and what is need to be placed to do it well, and also the intention to do so. And I think it's a human psychology back there, how we perceive that, intentions, time taken, and so on. I think we just don't put enough time and effort to that. Exactly as you, Christian, said, that we think in our head that, oh, it's too easy. Back in time when I did also like more sales and so on, people also, oh, sales, it's so easy. Well, somebody said that sales is easy, actually. I don't think so. But it's again the same thing. Like, we have like talking with other people, and what's there so complicated? Let's get rather the processes and tech part in the place.
You mentioned a lot of topics we can deep dive into, right? I actually took notes. So what you spoke about, like that people see it as soft conversation, or that people actually don't understand that each communication is complex and not simple, right? And that you need to have specific intentions, and that you need to be able to transport your intention properly. And that also requires understanding your conversational partner. So basically, when we speak about communication, that's what I learned the hard way, because initially I did not do it like that. You need to adapt your communication style to your conversational partner. And you can't expect the other person to adapt to you. So basically, whenever you want to have something decided or done or whatever, it's you or me who needs to adapt and try to get things done, right? But that's more like a summary. So let's deep dive into your first topic, right? Soft conversation between people. So how do you avoid to run into that kind of sentiment, right? Because I guess everybody sometimes runs into that, let's call it trap, that it's just some easy banter, and after that everything is being decided, which it is not. So do you have a specific way of preparing those crucial conversations? How do you do it, Renita?
Yeah, I think it's probably start with one piece in general stakeholder management. I mean, can be talent acquisition, but with any stakeholder. It's actually creating relationships, like building rapport first, that with whom, understanding where you stand in a company and who's the people you actually need to have a relationship. Not only like, let's say, in a talent acquisition when you have your hiring managers, but who else in a business are the people you need to actually have those conversations with. And then you need to intentionally take time and build relationship with these people, because you need to have something in place. And normally when the things goes bad, it's too late to start to build a relationship, which we haven't done before. And then you come to it already with, some ask or demands or something which is not in a place, but rather prepare to that and understand, okay, what is the, org around me? Who's the people I need to do something together? Who is the people who actually depending or I'm depending with, or I need some buy-in, and start to building these relationships before we need something from these people. Because very often we cut this part totally off and we kind of reactive. When we need something already, then the email goes out that, hey, yeah, look, it isn't this, or I have problem with X and either can set. And we haven't really set the scene for that. And kind of entering with a wrong leg to them, whatever relationship we're talking about.
Yeah, that makes total sense, especially what happens quite often. At least what I see is when someone starts in an organization new, so let's say in a head of HR or whatever position, they have that regular small onboarding and a one-on-one coffee chat or whatsoever, and then the relationship stops until something happens. So I think here it's, as you said, super important to schedule regular meetings. Doesn't need to be on a weekly basis, but there's always something to talk about if it's half an hour. And to really also understand your stakeholders' interests, targets, drivers, and issues, right? Because only then you know when something comes up and you need something, how to properly address the person as well.
Yeah, absolutely agree, because and to see that this is not probably also the people very like first round of you, because we sometimes don't think further that who else are like, let's say if you talent acquisition, all the different teams, might be that currently you don't have any like, hiring with those stakeholders, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be already building a relationship with people. That I think it's the first thing which we really cutting off. And I think you're right that very often I see new managers coming or team members who really don't put much of effort and time on that, and then we jump already in processes and demands or something we want to do differently and so on, but this will not land because the relationship is not there.
Yeah, I guess building the relationship is key to stakeholder management, even if you only have like real touch points once a month or even once a quarter for whatever kind of relationship that is, but still you need to have basic understanding of your conversational partner and how to address the specific topics, right? And if you don't know how to do that, the conversation is kind of doomed to fail anyway. So you will never get anything meaningful out of those conversations. And that also brings me to one thing, and I'm particularly bad at that. Don't laugh, Ina. You're not the best at this either. You actually need to do some kind of small talk, at least initially, to warm everybody up to the conversation that is coming. It doesn't need to be super long, and you don't need to do it the very British way, starting with the weather and then with your aunt and the dog and whatever. But at least have some basic chit chat before you jump into the proper conversation that you need to take. That's my experience, I guess. And maybe we also need to emphasize that with communication or stakeholder management, there is no one size fits all solution, because it's heavily individual, because everybody communicates differently, everybody thinks differently, and uses different arguments, right? So what works for me most likely will not work for anybody else, like the specific approach. So that makes it even more tough to really look into it, and I guess also to coach people into stakeholder management slash communication. So yeah, that's a big not problem, but a big mountain everybody has to climb, and assuming that just because I am good at talking doesn't necessarily mean I am good at really getting the message over to the other person.
And this, Christian, this small talk is also something I know we're coming from a, same type, probably also the cultural backgrounds, that this also which comes in a global teams to play, that are you like, let's say, coming from a task first cultures, want to have the things done and trust feel through the task, or again you need to build a relationship or rapport with the people who coming, let's say, relationship first cultures. Then you need to even more emphasize to that actually how you do your first part of the small talking and not jumping in on the agenda and so on, that this also in a global teams is something to really look into and understand and study before. If you're gonna have a new stakeholder, for example, in a very different background from you, that how you could do the research beforehand, a bit understand better where they come from, and be more prepared. Because we have this this conversation before, Christian, that would be very easy that you go like we talk about, in a Finnish culture or a Estonian culture, said, okay, this is the thing and we're going to do that. But it might be not the best approach, in globally.
I also think it highly depends on the level of people you're talking to, because if you go into the board level or C-level, yes, small talk or a personal connection can help you, but sometimes it's also not really possible, because and I think those are the tricky stakeholders, the ones you do not warm up with, right? And everyone has them. And so how can you deal with stakeholders like that? And I think then it's not so much anymore about building rapport, but building respect. And looking into what do my stakeholders need to listen, to understand their language. So when you talk about C-level or board, let's say if you speak the language of a CFO and you understand what is driving this person, same with the CEO, and then you translate it into your topics, this is how you can connect, like speak the language, speak with, hey, Christian, data. And I think that really, that's for stakeholder management from my perspective. Yes, if you can start conversations with a little chit chat, depending on the people, how much time they have, if they want this or not. But the alternative way is to work with respect, especially for HR people. I don't need to be liked. I'm just being the chief people officer, head of HR, whatever. I don't have to be the person that likes everyone and is liked by everyone, but I want to be respected and respect others. And I think that's also, especially for this role, super important.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I mean, it's depend to whom to speak, but also like I think maybe the other thing is that if you don't know the person, and let's say it's C-level or somebody, let's say more like a specific stakeholder, you can probably also little bit like ask around and can some kind of a bit profile in that how is the best approach, there is normally somebody else who know better, who can actually a little bit help you out beforehand, that you would be properly prepared. That definitely. And I think that the one thing probably is there to also ask the other part that how they want to actually approach this communication or building rapport or trust, because we also very often coming from our own side saying, okay, I try to do what I like to be done for me, but it's me. I like to be these kind of things, but we then assuming that also the other person, and it might be totally far from the truth how they actually would like this communication to go, or even this one meeting or a building, that it's always healthy to ask them just how it should be.
And you said a magic word for me, and that is prepare or preparation, right? It's a question of respect to prepare for the conversation you're having with the stakeholder, no matter the level, right? So always prepare what's the topic. If you have a stakeholder relationship that kind of relies on sending out information beforehand, do that, right? And that's also something you said, Renita. If you don't know the person, use the first conversation to create the framework you use for the future meetings, right? Ask the person, what do you expect from me? What do you want from me? How should we structure our conversations? What do you want to learn? What do I want to learn? And then just prepare for like accordingly for each and every of those single conversations. And then it's much easier to get your things also then decided upon. Whenever you need a decision from a single person or from a group of people, that's a completely different kind of thing and situation, right? When you need the decision of let's say the exec team in one go, you need to prepare differently, and you need to also communicate differently and kind of set things in motion way before the actual conversation. At least that's my experience. But I guess for each conversation we are having with a person, and that's not even stakeholder management, I guess, that's a normal behavior. You should be prepared, and you should treat people with respect.
Yeah, and definitely something which also, if you bring like, let's say, talent acquisition in, very often the core or what's not done to have this conversation with the hiring manager in the start, how we actually work together, what is expected, what is our agreement, and so on, because I very often see that we jump over it. And then we start to actually in a process complaining about why one is not doing X or other is not doing Y, but we actually didn't take time. And as you mentioned, Christian, done the preparation and took the time to discuss it through and agree how this will look like, and ask the questions and maybe write it down and then share with each other, and then it's much more easier to go from here. But I very often see that we kind of jumping over it. Say, oh, it's not so important, the preparation. For example, in talent acquisition, I would say that it's the main thing. Like, I wouldn't let you run or start the recruitment process without that, because then it's normally go to south. All my 20 years of experience, it's always proved that if you don't do the homework, it goes to south. I don't know if you, Christian, agree, but this has been my experience on that.
That's
Yep.
Christian's favorite kickoff meeting.
Yes, do it.
Yes, I also fully agree, and I think that's not only in TA but also all over HR. The first step needs to be clarity on and starting with the role. And that sometimes sounds so easy. Yes, my role is talent acquisition partner, or my role is HR business partner. What does that actually mean? What's my responsibility? What are decisions that I make? What are things the hiring manager decides? And that's also when I work with customers, or depending, like with the HR teams. If you, as a first step, look into the topic accountability or roles and really define what is this role responsible for? What are the targets of this role? That's super, super important. And that is then also going back to the recruiting world. That's also part of the kickoff meeting. Like when you talk about what is this role actually responsible for? What do I measure, and what can I decide and what not? And that's the same then on the smaller level. When I start talking with the stakeholder to like make clear what's my responsibility, what's your responsibility, what can I offer, what do I require from you, and what are our common targets. I think that's the main thing to define, like what do we want to achieve together, right?
Yes, as if you say whatever team, but in recruitment, very often recruitment or hiring team, that I think this is another place where it's getting, broken, because when we don't treat it as a team and also team responsibilities, accountabilities, then it somehow end up that there is, I don't know, somebody alone responsible for all actually team, actions. When I normally talk about the hiring, it's hiring always remembers me as some sort of team sport, as a herder or something, Everybody runs with, stick to another person, to another person, to another person. But it's team effort who brings the win home. And if then somebody is not clear what they should be doing in their part, or they measured against, or how they actually, put themselves best of success, then we can't have actually, the great outcome of this process. And therefore also we have done, even in one company, that we write down also like a job profile, a hiring manager. Who is that person exactly? Recruiter, sourcer, coordinator, and then how we all work together to have like a job role, to understand that, okay, that's what is expected of me, that's what I measured against, and that's how I work together with others. That I think it's somehow gets exactly this kind of clarity of that. That's what I'm doing in this process.
Yeah. So there are again some really good insights, right? When it comes to, let's call it again, communication, stakeholder management, right? And Ina, you said it, clarity, accountability, responsibility, and really then assigning responsibility to the respective person you're speaking with, and also making sure that everybody, and that sounds a bit bad, I guess, knows their role in the relationship, right? Because stakeholder management or communication is not always fully symmetrical, right? You might have an asymmetrical relationship in a way that you're speaking with, and that leads me back to executive team. You speak with the CEO, right? And the CEO is responsible for the complete company. So there is some more power on one end when it comes to decision making than on the other end. And the other end in that case is me or you, Ina Renita. And that also needs to be factored into your communication and also into your preparation, right? Because when I have, or when I want something from the executive team, from the C-level, I need to prepare for it, and I need to prepare it in a way, and that also leads to one of our favorite topics, Ina. I need to prepare it in a way that they understand it and not us. And that's one of the biggest issues, impediments of HR people. Somehow it's super tough for us to get out of our bubble of how we argue about things and how we describe things. And I've seen it myself often enough, right? When I describe something in the way I was trained to describe it, the CEO or whoever it is actually doesn't understand me. They don't know what I want from them. And when I started preparing TA dashboards for the C-level, I thought it's super good what I showed them, right? And they were not interested in it at all because it had no meaning for them. It was like, that's nice numbers. What do we do now? Is it good? Is it bad? I don't care. I need to have the roles filled at a specific point in time, right? Do we find the right people? Do the people stay we hire? That's the question they want to have addressed. So when we speak about stakeholder management in the HR space, for me, it's super, super important that we actually understand the business and that we base our arguments on the business needs. Because if we use a proper business use case for whatever, we need a new tool, we need this, we need that, and can show the potential impact based on actual numbers, it's much more likely that we get what we want. And don't laugh, what I'm saying now. But if we say, but the people will be happier if we have that, that's not a valid argument. To persuade executives, right? Maybe happiness is the outcome of what we're doing, but it's not the reason why we do it. Or it should not be reason why we do it. And that's also something that is deeply connected to stakeholder management, in my opinion, to really tailor everything you want, everything you communicate to the language they understand and they work with every single minute outside of speaking with HR.
And at the end, it's also Renita. At the end, it's also how we should decide, right? So if we want to implement a new HR tool, it's not about, I saw that tool and it has a fancy UX, UI whatsoever and nice icons, but it's like I actually have a business problem that I want to solve because we are working for the business, and then it's obvious that if we have engaged and happy employees, that they perform better, which is good for the business because then the business performs better. But the thinking should always start at what's the business problem we want to solve.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking out loud here when you were talking, Christian. That I mean, it's a general issue in HR, is it, that we always complain that we would like to have this seat on this mystical table where we where we somehow
the seat on the table
never get there, or we don't know where is the room or where is the table or something. But I was just thinking that is there, because this is a general issue. Maybe we need to find ways how to actually learn more and how we actually could learn more, let's say, appropriate communication, the business acumen, and how to actually really talk to the business. Because generally I see that this is something I think as a problem for everywhere. Maybe it's now a point, Christian, you say that you have training for that or something like that. Good moment.
I really would like to have that because then we would be rich.
I have one
how
thing.
We can get better.
I have one thing that I have to be honest, meanwhile, is starting to disturb me more and more, especially when you just started with the seat on the table. But if we really look into it, we mess it up by ourselves. It's like we need a seat on the table. We need to understand the business. We need to know how to talk with the business instead of, and that should be way more of the mindset, we are part of the business. It's not them and we. It's HR, recruiting. We are part of the business. So, and only with that mindset, we will work like this and then get our table. And that's our seat at the table, or the whole table. I need the whole table. No.
Ina wants the whole table already.
Obviously.
Obviously.
But here and I think this mindset is important. We are part of the business, so obviously we should understand what we are talking about. And we are also specialists in our part of the business and need to be able to explain that to the others. But first, and I can't repeat that enough, start with clarifying your role within the business. What am I responsible for? And then the rest is a little bit easier, I think.
Yeah. Could be so easy. So we have full circle back. It's not that hard, right? It's easy. We just need to do it right. No. Well, I guess we all know what I mean here. It's a kind of mindset shift, and it's not that. No, I will not go down that road because that will start a completely new discussion. It will turn super philosophical, and I'm not sure whether we can spend another 90 minutes on that thing. Let's circle back to stakeholder management. But you're right, right? But I guess that should be a completely different conversation. We are really already speaking for 30 minutes, right? So let's try to wrap everything up. And so we spoke about stakeholder management, quite theoretical. So Ina, Renita, what would be your hands-on tips to start communication with your key stakeholders on the right foot and not kind of make things bad from the onset? Ina, you start.
I think it's first to get to a common understanding. So, and that starts with also listening to your stakeholders and really understand what they need, what they want, what their drivers are. So I think you can achieve a lot with really listening, trying not to judge too much, right? But listen to your stakeholders, understand their drivers, and then go from there to define like what are the responsibilities and what do we agree on.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would
Renita?
just add that be proactive. I mean, check who actually are your stakeholders and reach out yourself to them before there is actual need happening, and especially if you are new in the company and business, understand that with whom business you're depending, you need to co-working and not in that reactive moment, but in the future where those ties lie, and then be actually very proactive to managing those relationship yourself. The more proactive you are, the better the outcome. And then, as Ina said, just this other part of that, understand what they actually need and do the preparation. You can also understand and ask questions around who they are, what is actually the team about, what is their business goals and so on, and build some kind of, let's say, you can build yourself the personas and start working with that. That I think it's would much help that then you can add this information that, okay, I learned that one in that. And of course, listening and asking the other side the questions.
Thank you. So I will add one small point as well, and then we can fully wrap it up. But it's a repetition of what has already been said, to be very honest. Try to understand that you're working or that you're communicating in a work context. So you don't need to be liked. You don't need to be loved. You only can expect respect from the person you're speaking with. And good stakeholder management, specifically for HR, doesn't mean that we need to say yes to everything. But when we know what we can do, when we know our responsibilities, our boundaries, it's very easy for us also to say no if things don't make sense. And that's something we need to learn, and that's I guess the harder piece. But still, saying no is a very valid option in stakeholder management. So again, thank you very much, Ina, Renita. It was a pleasure speaking with you. Time flew, apparently. And so I'm only left at wishing you a good rest of the day. Thank you again. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Das war's für heute. Vielen Dank, dass ihr bis zum Ende dabei geblieben seid und bis zum nächsten Mal.